Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from PewterReport.com. With me is Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com as well. And we are back after a week in Indianapolis at the Combine, where we found out a ton about what is going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they forge ahead into an offseason. I think we all remember as Bucs fans and media. I don't think there's any doubt about that, Scott. And it culminated in some news even today about Bucs free agents that has been kind of accentuated over the last couple days. Your battle plan for the offseason is out. There is news within the division that we've got to get to and address today. It's a loaded Monday after the Combine, as that Monday always is.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And let's start by not talking about the Buccaneers, but by talking about one of their division rivals, the Atlanta Falcons. News just breaking that Calvin Ridley, former Falcons #1 wide receiver, and really their top wide receiver since Julio Jones left. Well, he got suspended today for the entire 2022 season for gambling on football. So all of a sudden, you can kind of see where the Falcons are going to go in the draft. In round one, they're going to get a wide receiver for Matt Ryan because they don't have anybody outside of
they don't have any
tight end last year.
Right. And Russell Gage is a free agent, and maybe this means he's probably back. But remember, the Falcons aren't in like the greatest cap situation ever either. So there's some kinks to work out there. They were probably going to trade Calvin Ridley, by the way, if not for this news. That's kind of how things had been trending. There were several interested parties. So he probably wasn't going to be on Atlanta anyway, but now they can't even move him and get anything for him. And Calvin Ridley's going to be 29 years old, I think, the next time he can play in the NFL, unless there's an appeal process here or something. By the way, Calvin Ridley never wanted to stop tweeted, I bet 1,500 total. I don't have a gambling problem. He bet $1,500 total. No one is even saying he has a gambling problem, by the way.
No, he has a stupidity problem because that $1,500, how much was he set to make this year? How many millions did he cost himself?
He's jumping the gun a little bit to admit to us that he didn't even put enough money in to be worth what this suspension means for him.
Yeah.
Not the best move in the world for Calvin Ridley, man. There are some, remember, he was not with the team when this was happening. Right. So there will probably be some discussions that stem off of this. Like, if a player is on a certain list, like then they can't contribute to the result of the game. And so like, should the rule change for that? And those are discussions for another time. Bottom line right now, the rule is what it is, Scott, and $1,500, buddy, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Silliness.
Yeah. Again, when you're suspended, you don't get paid, right? I mean, you don't get a check. So Calvin Ridley was set to make millions this season playing for the Falcons or whoever else was going to acquire him. And he's going to get paid nothing for a $1,500 gambling excursion, extravaganza. Did he win?
It's really bad.
Did he at least win his bet, or did he lose?
Even if he did, at least keep going, man. Once you've done it, just keep going. Like,
I know. Well, I hope he used my bookie at least.
I know, right? Like, geez.
Yeah. Wow.
It was an incredible. So the Falcons basically in this situation now where Cal Pitts is back. We'll see what happens with Russell Gage, but they're obviously, like you said, big. I gave him Treylon Burks in my last mock draft. I do not think Treylon Burks will be a top 10 pick after the week in Indy. That just hearing and seeing things, but not that he isn't good. I just don't think he'll be a top 10 pick. But they're going to be one of the teams that absolutely wants to trade down. Not sure that they're going to be able to, but definitely. One of the teams that'll probably try to trade down and get a wideout.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of wideouts, I know we have some other news to get to before we get into my battle plan, but I do have the Buccaneers pilfering Cordell Patterson from the Falcons to take away yet another weapon from division rival Atlanta. So Cordero Patterson to the Buccaneers as their running back / wide receiver / kick returner. And now the Falcons are absolutely screwed thanks to me.
Wow.
You're welcome, Bucs fans.
I was going to say, that would just be, I feel like they've got it. But I mean, if you're Patterson, why would you want to go to Atlanta? Like you're coming in hot to free agency. You have not come in hot to free agency many times if you're Patterson. And even though he's older, you got to take advantage of this.
You want to go there now?
Right.
There's nobody
Right.
there.
Right.
There's
They're
Kyle
trying to get
Pitts
Matt
and
Ryan out of
Matt
town.
Ryan. Yeah, exactly.
Arthur Smith at the podium in the combine was like, "Come get this guy. Come get
Yeah.
Matt Ryan. Come give me an offer." I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
all right." So that's happening. I do want to get to your battle plan at length, but first, can we talk about, because I know we're coming right off the combine. We got to talk about combine news and free agency news that's really notable. All through the week, it was kind of like, what's going to happen with the franchise tag? Now we've got a situation where it looks like, shockingly to me, Scott, Chris Godwin is going to get the franchise tag from the Bucs, which is bad on several levels that we'll get to in a second. And Carlton Davis is not going to get the tag. We have not heard anything in fact, you've heard that as of this morning, at least, a deal with neither of these players was close yet in terms of long-term deal. We've known that Godwin was going to come back. Regardless, we just did not think it was going to take the franchise tag to make that happen. That is disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there were some people that were misinterpreting the tweet that I put out when I said he's not going anywhere, and he's not. Right. So much so that if they have to use the damn franchise tag on him, they're going to. Chris Godwin is not going anywhere, and the reason why I put
if anything, you should have emphasized it more. He's really not going anywhere.
Yes. Like I was
they will
serious.
hold this man hostage with the tag.
No kidding.
For a second straight year, they're desperate not to lose Chris Godwin, Scott.
He is a wide receiver / prisoner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he's not going anywhere. Now, you're right, John. It is detrimental because ideally, in an ideal world, you want to use or at least have the option of using it on Carlton Davis. And I think, and this is something that I want you to speak on a little bit. You aptly noticed, you were there in Indy.
I think Scott just lost his power. Uh-oh. Power drop off of Scott. But I know what he was going to say. I think I know what he was going to say because I can read ahead into the future. He was going to say that in Indianapolis, Jason Light and Bruce Arians both made it a point to say that Carlton Davis is a great player when he's healthy. That's an important distinction that they both continually noted. When he's healthy, yes, when he's healthy. This is somewhat ironic because Chris Godwin has actually suffered a way more serious injury than anything Carlton Davis has suffered during his time in the NFL. So, and Chris Godwin has missed some games too. I'm not overly concerned about the health of either player here. I'm just speaking to the narrative that the Bucs seem to have conjured up for Carlton Davis. Doesn't mean they don't want to pay him. I think they do want to pay him. I think they would love to use the tag on him. I don't know that it really extends beyond that for him. So Scott's just frozen, right? I don't think I'm frozen right now, but yeah, I think that's the situation that we have right now, is that looking at Carlton Davis, the Bucs want to tag him. They don't want to necessarily sign him to a long-term deal at this point in time. However, the situation also seems to be that they don't want to risk losing Chris Godwin, period, no matter what. I love the idea that they want to bring back Godwin. Desperation is just an ugly odor, though. And that's what the Bucs just went into this and did not even try to, hold their cards close to the chest at all. They basically said, we can't even imagine a future without Chris Godwin. That's what Jason Light said. And there's just something desperate about that. Like, you don't need to say all that. Like, now you're in this situation where you're literally saying we're going to tag you to bring you back. Like, does Chris Godwin want to be here? I believe that he does. And if he does, then okay, why hasn't this deal been worked out? They've had forever to work it out. He is not going to break the bank. This isn't Devontae Adams, where he can be the highest paid wideout in the league. He's going to make somewhere between 16, 17 million dollars. That's where his contract's going to fall. It just doesn't seem like it's that tricky to work this thing out, Scott, especially now that he's injured and he should be wanting the money, and the Bucs the tag makes no sense this year for either party. Last year you could justify it for both. This year, it just does not make sense for either party.
It's disappointing, and I'll go so far as to say this, right? Because they franchised him last year. They have literally had an entire year to work on this deal, right? And Chris Godwin stopped playing in week 13. His season was over. So there's nothing else to evaluate other than how's your knee, Chris, coming off the ACL surgery, right? There's no other statistics he put up. His season was over. Like, all of the data is gathered at that point in time. And I'm just going to say this, and this is not really directed at Chris Godwin per se, who's a great guy. I've got plenty of respect and admiration for Chris. But I'll say this about his representatives. If the Buccaneers lose Carlton Davis because they couldn't use the franchise tag on him, Chris Godwin and his camp bear some responsibility for this. They really do. Because from what I've understood, it's not so much the Buccaneers that are holding this up. It's Godwin's agents and his camp. And so I think that's unfortunate. If Carlton Davis hits free agency and all it takes is one team to overinflate your value, and the Buccaneers historically have had kind of a red line in the sand. They put a value on a player and they really don't deviate from that. So I hope that this does not mean Carlton Davis gets pilfered by another team. I think he's probably maybe the second best corner on the market behind J.C. Jackson, maybe Stephon Gilmore if you still think he can play. But to me, John, this tag would have and could have been used and should have been used on Carlton Davis, because I think the Buccaneers would have liked a 1-year prove-it deal to see how healthy Carlton Davis could stay and how many plays he could make. Is he a 1 interception guy or is he a 4 interception guy? Because those two guys get paid differently.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no question in my mind that they want to see him a little bit more before they give him what he probably will get on the open market, which is exactly what the franchise tag is there for. It's these situations. It is not a double tag a player that you've known for some time you want to bring back and sign to a long-term deal. And really, like you said, a year, honestly, it's been more than a year when you consider that he was in free agency last year. Like, they have had so much time and just not that much has changed. He just played on a tag that was $15.9 million. He had a good year. He got hurt at the end of that year. Like, it just, like, there's just not a lot of difference. I mean, his agents are tripping if they think he's going to get like 20 mil type of range if he hits the market. It's just not going to happen. And the Bucs aren't even going to let him hit the market. So what are you going to do? Play another year on a tag? No, you're not. You're going to end up signing a long-term deal with the Bucs because that's the situation that you're in with the tag. So why not just reach that so that they can also get Carlton Davis back? And that, again, makes the team that Chris Godwin is going on have a chance to be better, because
and that's what I'm saying. Honestly, if I'm Jason Light or Bruce Arians, I'm picking up the phone and getting on the phone with Chris Godwin saying, listen, you got to tell your people that this is a move that's detrimental to the Buccaneers. Okay. That we want to pay you. Like, we love you. If you don't know that by now, did you listen to our press conferences in Indy? I mean, that was like last week, right? We love you. Yeah. We want you back. We're willing to use the franchise tag on you, but we're also willing to pay you market value for a multi-year deal. But we also want to keep Carlton Davis, which helps you and helps us. So help us make that happen. Let's strike the deal now before we have to use the tag on you to keep you in Tampa Bay.
It's a bizarre situation for a couple of reasons, Scott. One of which is, I don't know what happens if Carlton Davis hits the market. Like, I expect him to have a ton of interest. Mm-hmm. I think he will generate some big offers in the J.C. Jackson range, right around what the tag would have been. But now you've got to commit long-term to him at that rate.
That's right.
You can manage his cap hit for this year for sure, which helps a little bit more than the tag, but you have to be competitive at the level of those offers. It gets that if he starts getting J.C. Jackson money, if he starts getting if J.C. Jackson and him are both getting 18 and 19, now all of a sudden you're over what the tag would have been. There just are not a lot of corners like that hit the market. Guys like Carlton Davis and J.C. Jackson don't typically hit the market. The only reason Jackson is because it's New England. Any other team, you wouldn't free-sign him. New England thinks every player is just replaceable. So those guys are going to hit the market. Gilmore hits the market, but he's older at this point. He's 31. He's coming off 2 years where he hasn't been as good. Injuries have been a thing for him as well. So there's a lot of red flags there. It's going to be a shorter-term deal. There isn't much more. If you look down the corner, I mean, Darius Williams is 5'9". The Bucs aren't going to pick up a corner that size. As good as he's been, they're not going to go. So even if they lose Carlton Davis, I mean, you have Travarius Ward and Stephon Gilmore, two of the better corners. They're both man coverage heavy guys. The Bucs obviously like to do, but this is a zone heavy coverage scheme that will go to man, but needs their corners to be able to play in zone. Neither of those guys are as good in those scenarios. There isn't a clear option to me like, if they miss out on Carlton Davis, here's what they do. It's going to be stopgap patchwork in the secondary, and you cannot have that in a year where you're going into questions at quarterback.
That's right. And the other thing too is all of a sudden you got to draft a starting caliber corner because you're going to play nickel most of the time. And now Sean Murphy-Bunting, is he going to be an outside corner opposite Jamel Dean, and then you're looking for a new slot, or is he going to stay in there? Then you're going to start a rookie on the outside. That is not a recipe for success. Oh, and by the way, think what you want about Sean Murphy-Bunting and Jamel Dean, but Carlton Davis is better than both those guys. So you're losing your best corner in that situation. It's It's tough to replace him. A free agent fit might not come in and be, you're talking about those man coverage guys, and this is a zone heavy scheme. It might not be an ideal fit. It might be a situation where whoever they bring in, whether it's a rookie, whether it's a veteran, is just not good. And then you're stuck for an entire year with that. And then maybe it's okay, well, can we put Ross Cockrell in, at slot and move Sean Murphy Bunting outside? I mean, it's not good.
Right. And the thing is, that the Bucs know that Carlton Davis is critical to what they do. They talked about all last year they've talked about the last 2 years, top 10 corner in the league, can match up with number one corners or number one wide receivers. When he was out last year, they were like, well, we don't have all our guys, so we've had to limit and change some things. And then when he came back, wow, we have so much more flexibility. Like, they just said it openly, and there's no doubt the tape shows it. There's no question that it's true. I don't know how they can look at it the way they've looked at it for two reasons. One, yes, like we talked about, you had to get the deal done with Chris Godwin. It's egregious that you didn't on the Bucs part or his agent's part, whatever it is. You have to find a way to get that thing done. Or no, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna let him hurt the rest of the team, and you got to know when to cut ties too. I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying it just seems unrealistic to me that it's ridiculous that they haven't been able to get this thing done, in my opinion, on both sides. And number two, I'm still not sure that you should use the franchise tag on Godwin. Like,
I know.
Let me ask you this, Scott. If Chris Godwin and Carlton Davis both hit free agency, and I know some because I've had so many conversations with people that are very in the know about these things, but and I know you have too. Which one of those guys do you think is commanding more of a competitive market, given the fact that both are going to be, corner, the tag is actually a little bit higher.
Davis
corner is more rare. What do you think happens? Both those guys hit the market.
I think Davis is going to be more in demand because great corners are hard to find. It's J.C. Jackson, and then it's Carlton Davis, right?
Yes.
And Carlton Davis is healthy. Chris Godwin's coming off of a torn ACL. This draft is flush with wide receivers
for like the fifth year in a row.
Not so much, right?
Right.
So I think that out of the two, as much of an importance as Chris Godwin is on this team, I honestly think it would probably be easier to replace Chris Godwin over the next 2 years with somebody than it would replacing Carlton Davis. Cornerbacks are just so vital to any team in the NFL because it's such a passing league.
Both positions and both players, in my opinion, would be extremely difficult to replace for the Bucs. So I hear what you're. I'm not saying you're wrong. You both are probably just very difficult to replace.
Correct.
But I'll say this: if you let both hit the mark, you're going to have way more competition for Carlton Davis at a higher price, in my opinion, than you would have for Chris Godwin in his current state with wide receivers. I just have talked to so many people and heard so much about the wide receiver market. Other teams tend to not. It only takes one, obviously, but generally speaking, teams follow each other in these trends. They don't want to be the one that way overpaid for somebody. They're all listening to each other too. And I don't think most teams see Chris Godwin as a true number one receiver. That means that he's out of like the $18 to $24 million range that some of these guys are probably looking for. Devontae Adams will probably get and be the highest paid receiver in the league. Teams don't see him as that type of receiver in the NFL. Now he's coming off a serious injury. Also, his health coming out of the draft was not like a 100% guaranteed 2 thumbs up from every NFL team. So there are kind of some lingering concerns there, like, oh, this might not be a guy that plays, deep into his 30s or anything like that. Like somebody like Evans may, given his track record in terms of injuries. So those questions already exist, and now he's had he's been banged up a little bit. So to me, it just feels like a situation. I just don't think I don't think you'd get offers that much higher than 17 for Chris Godwin, if you even got 17, based on everything I've heard and everybody I've talked to. And I've talked to more people about the Godwin situation than the Carlton Davis one, because most didn't.
The franchise tag for Godwin will be over $19 million, right?
Right.
I mean, for Davis, it's 17. So I'm just saying, from a pure cap standpoint, it's $2 million cheaper to franchise Carlton Davis, even though you're overpaying for him with the tag. It's just,
you're more likely to get Godwin back than Davis on the market, in my opinion.
Correct.
Maybe we're tripping, but I'm not even just making up. I just think it's what I've heard from most people that are in the vibe or in the know on this. So I think that's part of the problem here. Chris with the $5 super chat. My Celsius Peach 5 just arrived from Amazon. I came back from Indy, Scott.
Dude, you got a house full bunch, didn't you? Yes,
Celsius.
I did. And this is a new top 5 flavor for me. This is brand new, the orange pomegranate. Now this is stevia flavored. So again, no sugar, right? and it's got no preservatives. It's got all of the energy that you need in it with no crash, and it's packed with flavor. So I'm telling you, does it taste like orange and pomegranate? It does, but I'm telling you, like it almost tastes like a Danish in the morning. Like it's sweet. Like this is one of the sweeter flavors, but it's not like strawberry sweet or whatever. This is an absolute home run. This orange pomegranate sparkling,
Right.
It's fantastic.
And there's so many like that. That's the thing. I can't wait to try some of the new flavors that I got, and I'll pop them in the fridge and try those. But I'm still in awe and love with the sparkling mango passion fruit.
Yep.
Essential energy, accelerates your metabolism, burns body fat with no sugar, yet tastes unbelievable and comes in incredible variety of flavors. It's pretty remarkable what Celsius has been able to do, and the fact they keep churning out flavors that people keep loving. We've had a ton of Bucs fans recently buying the cola flavor, using banner ads at pewterreport.com, going to Amazon, doing the subscribe and save option, or just using the store locator on Celsius to find out where they sell this stuff near you. And the cola has been a big hit lately. So pumped about people who are switching that. Somebody messaged me, Scott, and said they've lost, I can't remember how many pounds it was.
20 pounds.
20 pounds, was it?
Pounds,
switching to the cola from other sodas. So just really, really cool stuff. It's awesome to see Celsius being able to do that for people. So I'd encourage you to check those out and find out where they're selling Celsius near you, because it really is, it's awesome stuff. And I was pumped when I saw the new flavors that I haven't tried yet. And you got to get the best protein bars out there as well. Fast protein bars, Celsius's other brand. I mean, they've got an opportunity to save 20% on Amazon right now.
Right.
20 hold fast is the promo code. 20 hold fast. The white chocolate cookies and cream and the caramel peanut crunch. You got a link to Amazon in the YouTube description. I've got in there for you, and do this promo code 20 hold fast to get 20% off. The best protein bars I've ever had tasting.
Totally agree.
So make sure you check those out. So that's the Godwin and Davis situation, Scott. I mean, we could go on and probably do a whole show about that because it is really a frustrating, troubling situation. And it does appear that we are inching closer and closer to Chris Godwin getting the franchise tag.
Now, I will say this. You've already seen some franchise tags been thrown out there today. I think the Buccaneers are going to wait all the way up till 4 o'clock tomorrow. All it takes is one conversation, strike a deal, right? So it's literally a couple minutes on the phone, an email, a contract that's emailed over. I mean, it can be done quickly. I've seen it happen before at the 11th hour. So I think the Buccaneers will be waiting until 4 o'clock tomorrow to make that designation, while they're still trying to make some headway with either Godwin camp, the Davis camp, or both.
Deadlines definitely spur on action. So we will wait and see, and we will take back all these words if they do indeed get something done. Also, they could be like, we're very close with Chris Godwin. It's going to happen. He wants to come back here. We've seen, at this point, we feel confident in, okay, let's use the tag on Davis. We'll wrap up Godwin over the next week and we'll be good to go. That could be a scenario that plays out too. So we'll see what happens. It is going to be an exciting day tomorrow going down to the wire, but man, I have no clue what the Bucs do if Carlton Davis hits free agency. Obviously, corner goes to the top of the needs list in the draft. They talk about injury. Jamel Dean's been hurt like 7 different times last year. Sean Murphy-Bunting's been hurt and not been good. I don't know that they have a clear, they need corner badly, I believe, if they lose somebody like Carlton Davis. And there really are not many options other than stopgap guys, on the market right now. So it's, to me, he's a player you have to bring back. I don't know what they'll do.
As a matter of fact, in my Bucs battle plan, and I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I went today and tomorrow.
Cry about it.
So I don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do.
True.
But at the same time, I had the luxury of also saying, screw it, I'm going to use the franchise tag on Carlton Davis. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get a deal done. Why? Because I can. This is our fantasy football, projections about what we want to do with the team. So I'm going to get that deal done with Chris Godwin. So I've got the best of both worlds in my scenario here, John. I'm franchise Davis. I'm going to get Godwin back, around $16 million per year. So,
people are divided in the chat, I guess, kind of. And I just want to be clear. I'll repeat. I'm not saying that Chris Godwin is more replaceable. I don't think either player are very easily replaced. There isn't an obvious path to replacing either player. If you lose, I went so far as to say in my article today, I believe something along the lines of, if you don't bring back Carlton Davis and Chris Godwin, it's hard to consider the offseason, it's hard to consider free agency. The offseason includes Brady and Marpet, so that's might be an L no matter what. But it's hard to consider free agency a win if you don't bring both of them back. So both need to be back. What I'm saying is I think you'd have an easier time getting both back if you tagged Carlton Davis and let Godwin hit the market, because I just think he'd end up wanting to come back, and you could more easily match what he's going to get without breaking the bank. So maybe I could be totally wrong on that. We'll see what happens. I just think that's the light of which from what I was talking to people this week in Indy, it feels like people would jump at Carlton Davis hitting the market.
I agree.
They think he's really talented, which I didn't know if they'd watch all the drop picks or if they just look at the box score. So it seems like they've unfortunately watched all the drop picks. So
that's
they
true.
know what he's capable of. All right, let's jump to the free agency part of it that includes the Bucs interior offensive line. This was a big takeaway from people you talked to, Scott, and the conversations we were able to have with Jason Light and Bruce Arians. The Bucs don't want to lose Alex Kappa and Ryan Jensen. Not exactly news flash there, but they are really determined not to lose both or maybe either of those two. They really want both of them back. They do not want a ton of turnover on the offensive line. Yeah,
I think they're only going to get one back just because of the price tag of what it's going to take for each of these guys. But the thing is once Ali Marpet retired, they would see this offseason and even this season just being a fat L if they lost all three of their interior guys, especially with two of them being Pro Bowlers in Marpet and also with Jensen. The thing with Jensen is, and John, you heard that, and I heard this as well. So this is like coming from two different places in stereo here, that Ryan Jensen wants to be the highest paid center in the game again. Right now, that's Frank Ragnow for Detroit, $13.5 million. The problem is it's not going to take $13.5 million and a penny to necessarily hit that mark. There's going to be other teams in the mix. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens, the place where Jensen first started. Maybe it's the Cincinnati Bengals, who definitely need offensive line. Maybe it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a lot of teams that could be interested in Jensen. And that's going to drive the price up, right? It might start at 13.5, but it might end up close to 15. And at some point in time, as much as the Bucs want Jensen, keep in mind, they paid him an average of $10.5 million per year over his contract that he signed in 2018. There comes a point in time where they're out, right? Where comes a point in time where they fold and they're out. And so I don't know what that is. Are they willing to pay 13? Are they willing to pay 13.5? Are they willing to go to 14? I don't know what their number is. The one thing that I will say is if the Bucs offer 13.5, that's different from a different state up north that has a state income tax. There is no state income tax in the state of Florida. So for example, let's say, because I just looked it up, let's say California with a 10% state income tax, right? Let's say the Rams or the Chargers or whoever wants them from California. I'm not sure what the other states have, but you would be looking at, say, $13 million for Ryan Jensen here. And that would almost be the same as about $15.5 million, or I should say about $15 million elsewhere. It's about almost a $2 million difference, right? In terms of that. But the money is the same because you're not getting all the money. It's going to the state in terms of taxes. Right. So that's where the Buccaneers have a little bit of an advantage, is they can get away. Definitely. Because the salary cap's the same, right? But the thing is, where it makes a difference is how much does Ryan Jensen want to be the highest paid center? Because if that's the case, if he wants that designation, there's some players out there that want that designation. That's a pride thing for them. Maybe it's an ego thing. I don't think Jensen's it's an ego thing with him. We'll see. I don't think it's an ego. I think he just wants to make the most of his last contract. So I don't think it will be an ego trip. I think you're right. I think it'll be more like, I want to make the most money I can make on this deal. And if you're showing him that everything's the same, you're going to get 15.5 there and 13.5 here, and it's the same money after taxes or however it breaks out. That's where the Buccaneers have a little bit of an advantage there. But the thing is are they going to go all in on Jensen? And if they are, they're going to lose Kappa. Or do they sit there and say, we can't go all in on Jensen. It's just going to be too much money. It's going to cost us another player. Plus, it's going to cost us Kappa. So let's bring back Kappa and get another player back into the fold and let Jensen go.
Yeah, this is where it gets really tricky. You have to evaluate this year in a proper context, and you have to be somewhat realistic. Like 2022 is maybe guaranteed Jensen. You can't maybe guarantee anything.
Right.
2023 is just not. His body is going to break down during his next contract. You are paying a 4-year deal, whatever it is, but you're paying for the next 2 years, especially.
That's right.
You're hoping the next 2 years he balls out, because the reality is the reality. He's going to be 31 years old this season. He's going to be 31 in May. He'll be 31 years old this season, and be 32 going next season. He'll come out of next season. He'll turn 33 in that offseason. So you need these next 2 years. Like, the guy's body will break down at some point. It just will. It's not going to he's not going to go all 4 years playing at peak level.
He's been able to play through it so far, but there's going to come a point in time, maybe it's 31, maybe it's 32, where those injuries that he's been playing through will keep him on the sidelines.
Or they'll decline his ability to play well on the field, which is in some ways even worse. I love Ryan Jensen so much. I'm trying to think about this as an unbiased, like in terms of just cost efficiency. I just wouldn't chase a center at 31 years old. Maybe I take a huge L and he goes and plays 3-4 more years at an elite level.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Jensen's a very good center. You can make an argument he's the best center in the league. I don't think he's a complete difference maker on the field. Yeah, the locker room stuff is valid, but at this point, if you can't trust the Bucs locker room and the guys that have been around there, and even if you're bringing Alex Kappa back, you can find character guys. You have to trust the other leaders that you have in the locker room. He's far from the only one in this team. He's far from the only one in the offense or the offensive line. You've got to be able to trust that part of the process. You just do. You cannot chase this dude for major money, especially if it means losing a Carlton Davis or somebody like that.
Well, and the thing is you can re-sign Alex Kappa, and maybe he gets 9. I think it's probably going to be somewhere between 8 and 9. I don't think the market's going to be as robust for Kappa. We'll see. All it takes is one team. We talked about that. But you can go out and get a guy that you and I both like, John, Bradley Bozeman, who is the center. And this is a guy that is coming up. He's almost like Ryan Jensen 2.0 in terms of the fact that he was a 6th-round draft pick, just like Jensen was. Started off in Baltimore, started off playing guard, played 1 year at center in his contract year, played very well. And the situation is he's 26 years old. He'll be 27 later this year. He's 4 years younger than Ryan Jensen. And he's
not going to be the highest paid center in the league like Jensen was back in 2017 or whatever.
He's probably going to be a $7-8 million per guy, or $7-8 million per season guy. He's 6'5", 317, built very similar to Jensen. And you can see him right there, number 77. He's a big hoss. He is a guy, right? I mean, he's a big, nasty guy.
Yeah,
very strong guy. Out of Alabama, you might have remembered him playing for the Crimson Tide, Bradley Bozeman. So that's a player that you can spend a combined a little bit more money, right? If you're spending, let's say, 8 for Kappa, 8 for Bozeman, you're getting 2 players for $16 million, where Jensen might.
And I don't think Bozeman's going to be 8. And I don't think Bozeman's going to be 8 either. So you're genuinely looking at Bozeman and Kappa for the cost of Jensen, maybe. I mean, that's not crazy to assume that it will be pretty similar.
I had him at $7 million in my battle plan. 3 years, $21 million, $7 million. So
I think you're somewhere. I think that paying for both of them is somewhere in the 14 to 16. 13 to 15, maybe even range.
2
for
players
both those guys.
So 1.
It's just smart GMing. That's all that it is. And it doesn't mean there's always that intangibles factor you have to calculate. There's always that heart and soul factor, but you've got to be smart in these situations. And again, if you were in a window where this year you could win the Super Bowl, and that's what you're paying for Jensen if you give him the bag. So and you're not in that window. You have to be realistic about
Jensen's
it. You have
31, and Bozeman and Kappa will both be 27. So it's 4 years younger. Right. For these offensive linemen.
Right. It's the way I would do business. And I would try to bring Kappa back at a more reasonable rate. If he obviously prices himself out, I mean, you got to be careful, but I don't think that's as likely to happen with Kappa as it is with somebody like Jensen.
Yeah.
We'll see. That's going to be either way. I mean, like, no matter what happens, obviously, if both are back, it's less of an issue, but the Bucs are going to be looking at interior offensive line in this upcoming draft.
Yep.
I was so impressed with Zion Johnson in Mobile. I was so impressed with him at the combine, his workout. Then I just finished his tape evaluation. How in the world are people not talking about him as a first round? He is a monster. He tossed people around.
Right?
What's that?
Is he even going to be there at 27 as an option?
You know, it's crazy. I even looked at I forget what the name of the site is now, but it tracks mock drafts for all year round. So it tracks mock drafts from the end of last year's draft, and it tracks where players stock basically. It's a really cool site. And I think it's called Grinding the Mocks, I want to say it's called. And his stock has just recently gotten into the first round, but the Bucs are about his ceiling right now. So like that's about the earliest he's going is Tampa Bay. A couple people slotting him into Pittsburgh at 20, but there are kind of, just a few landing spots for guards usually. Now we have to see what happens in free agency, obviously too. That could change some things for some teams, but for the Bucs, that need is almost certainly going to be there. Maybe it just depends to what degree it'll be there.
Sure.
So
and
it'll be interesting. To me, he's clear. I think he's going to be a top 10 player overall for me on my board.
But he's a guard, so he's not going to go in the top 10 per se, right?
I don't put. Yeah, correct. I should preface. I do not put positional value on players on my board. I just put them in wherever the board says they are. Now, you have to be careful taking a guard in the top 10 for sure. I'm not saying she should go in the top 10. I'm just saying I value him in a vacuum like a top 10 player in the class. That's how good I think he is. And the testing was great, and the character seems great, and his teammates raved about him in Indianapolis, and he was terrific at the Senior Bowl. They raved about
great
him.
Blend of technique and nasty, right?
Yeah.
Like he reminded me of Marpet a little bit, just watching his film, right?
Marpet's a great comp for him, which is one of it kind of gives me, like, if he were a Buck, it'd just be incredible, Scott. I mean, he's very similar to Marpet in that grip strength is phenomenal and hardly ever gets walked back or bull rushed. He's probably even more stout than Marpet, maybe a little less athletic, but still tested well. I mean, he's an athlete still, no question that he can get in space, and just how under control he is and how rarely he falls off blocks. For a guy with his build and his mass, that is just his technique, hands inside every time. I mean, Brandon Thorne has had him as OG1 for a while, and a lot of other people have had Kenyon Green, and I like Kenyon Green. He's a good player too, and he'll be probably a consideration with the Bucs. But Zion got the formal interview. Green had not had that scheduled when we talked to him, at least at this point. Zion's clearly a player they've seen on tape and said that that's a guy that we want. I mean, why wouldn't they? He fits everything Jason Light looks for at that position.
Sure. And I think the thing is in free agency, like let's use some hypotheticals. Let's say they use a combination of you have a Bozeman and a Hainsey at center. Let's say they re-sign Kappa, let Jensen walk. I think they still re-sign Aaron Stinney, right, as a fallback, cheap 1 year kind of guy. They've got some other guys, the Nick Leveretts, the Sedarius Hutchinsons they can put in the mix. But when you're looking at a guy like Zion Johnson, if he's there at 27, he is a plug-and-play guy that he's just I don't want to say he's the next Tristan Wirfs because there's only one Tristan Wirfs, but that's the expectation is you put him in as a day one starter. He probably beats out Stinney, and in your offensive line all of a sudden is set this soft season where it's in flux right now.
Right. And that's another reason why I just think, again, these positions tend to be more replaceable than a wide receiver or a corner. Like they just do. So, you hate to lose players, but when you lose them at positions that is a little bit easier to find replacements for, especially no matter where you are in the draft. Like you're not getting that many crack shots at a number one corner if you're not drafting that high. Like they just go really high. So no matter where you're drafting, you can usually get a guard. Like you usually have a shot at those types of players. So, and centers too. So something to think about for sure.
Yeah. So one of the things we learned in Indy, John, is that Bruce Arians had talked to Ndamukong Suh. He still wants to play another year. Also, Jason Pierre-Paul wants to play, but I don't think they're interested in bringing back Jason Pierre-Paul. I just don't. I've heard that officially, but I would be shocked if they did. They've got Joe Tryon Shoyinka for a reason. You're
especially now. You have to see what torn rotator cuff is. That's major recovery. That's 6 months easy. Yeah, right. He. I mean, if he's ready for week one, that's possible. But you wouldn't sign him. And no, I don't know why anyone would sign him right now.
Correct. So the question from Vortex here, Scott, in your Bucs battle plan, you had us re-signing Suh. Should we just let him walk and try to give starting opportunities to younger players considering our competitive situation? Yes and no. I kind of cheated. I'm going to tell you why I cheated. I cheated because Sue is already on the books for 6.8 million worth of dead cap money. So they're already having to pay that money essentially in dead cap space. So Sue's going to occupy that money whether he's on the team or not. So I had him as a 1-year, $7 million deal. I don't even know if Sue wants to come back to the Buccaneers or not. I don't know if that's the situation where he wants to find a more competitive team for one more year and do that. He's kind of been, and I use this term in a very affectionate way, but he's kind of been a bit of a mercenary, going from Detroit to Miami.
No, everybody said that about him for years. That's
So
I mean, he's obviously a dude that's all about trying to make money. Doesn't mean he doesn't care about the team. He just
correct.
Right.
Yeah, when he's there, he's in, right? But I mean, it's not like he's a Buccaneer. If you cut him open, he's not going to bleed red and pewter. He'll just bleed red and green for the dough. Right. So I don't know if Sue wants to come back, but I brought him back at $7 million in my Bucs battle plan just because he would be a great rotational piece. And then I also said, screw it. There's only 3 defensive tackles that I think are worth the damn in this draft. Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, who I don't think is a great fit, and then Travis Jones. I don't really care for, nor do I see a Bucs fit outside of those guys. And because it's so top heavy, I don't know that any of those guys are going to be around. Maybe Jones will be at 27, but you can't bank on that heading into the draft and not addressing free agency. So I said, you know what? We're going to sign BJ Hill, player you and I both like, John, from the Bengals, and just be done with it. This is a younger player that he's very good against the run. He had 5.5 sacks in the regular season, had a sack and a half in the postseason. He brings a little bit more quickness and pass rush, 6'3", 303. He's a very versatile player. You plug him in next to Vita Vea, and you have Sue as a rotational player for 1 year. So you got a really good interior rotation right there between those 3. And I think it's an upgrade actually over the situation last year with Steve McClendon.
Yeah. I mean,
you still have Nacho too.
Obviously, this is one of my favorite parts of the battle plan. I love BJ Hill in Tampa Bay. It was so telling to me, Scott, that you just do not see answers that are as transparent as Bruce's answer was in Indianapolis about so we just asked defensively, like, what do you feel like you need going into the year? And usually that's a bad question. Like, just, I don't even know who asked it. So I apologize. It was in a huge scrum. It wasn't the Bucs media. Somebody asked it and he was just like, right away, interior pass rush quickness. Like, I was like, whoa, like this dude has thought about it. Like, I think he saw what Joe Tryon-Schwenken did and he realized, okay, he's got to play outside this year.
Right.
So we can't use him inside. And now it's like,
right,
this is what we got to get. Like, we don't have, and in this, give credit to Arians because, like, this is so important. I wrote about this right after the season ended, didn't I, Scott? Like I said, Bucs have to find a way to get better at 4-man pass rush. They have their 2 outside guys for next season. So they're just those guys got to be good. Shaq's got to keep balling and JTS got to get better. Anthony Nelson got to keep, that is what it is. Maybe they take an edge, but I don't think they will early in this draft. I think they'll rely a lot on those 3 guys and another vet that they might bring in. We'll see, or a later round guy, whatever. Cam Gill too. Those guys got to basically all be good players this year, but they need different pieces on the inside. They need another piece to be a pass rush impact guy on the inside. So give credit to Arians. He identified it right away. For us right now, it's quickness. We've got strength. We've got plenty of strength. We need some quickness in the interior pass rush. We've got a good outside pass rush. So for us, it's watching these guys and seeing whose interior pass rush fits us, but also who is still stout enough to stop the run. Okay. See you, DeMarvin Leal, probably. Leal. We don't need another Vita. That was a telling. Like, he's thought about the body type. We don't need another Vita. There's not another one out there anyway. And if we get our guys back, Sue, Golston, McClendon, I'm fine too. He's saying, I'll roll with that if we get everybody back. If we want to come back, and that's how the front office works it out. We'll roll with those guys. But we need something quicker in there. So
there's nobody quicker. There's nobody quicker in free agency or in this year's draft. There just isn't. There's that guy's not there. And I think Devontae Wyatt
this is where
might be,
Wyatt
but he's not going to be.
Is he there at 27? You're right. This is where it gets tricky because, we found out the other day Jordan Davis is quick, but none of the other things apply to him. Like, he didn't pass rush at all at Georgia. He was a 0 as a pass rusher. And maybe he can grow into it, but that's a 340-pound dude that to me feels a lot like he's going to be used like Vea. I just don't see it being the fit that he's talking about here. Same with Travis Jones, 325-pound dude who tested great. He was plenty athletic. They're just not 3 techniques. They're not going to be players who are first penetrators who are going to be in the backfield as pass rushers.
It's another version of Ndamukong Suh, right? It's a 4 to 5 sack kind of guy per year and a big space eating run stuffer,
So we got to be realistic, and I agree with you. In the first round, it's unlikely that they find that guy if Wyatt isn't on the board. If he's on the board, it's the fastest. I mean, I think the Bucs make the pick in a snap. I really do. Yeah. But if he's not, Logan Hall is a weird body type, but he is kind of like Golston, and he did weigh in at 282. That was a big deal, because he tested really well, 283, I think maybe actually, and he tested really well there. Scott, here's the concern with me. He's got very short arms, sub 33-inch arms. As a tall guy who plays high, because I asked him straight up, is your height a disadvantage for you playing inside? And he was like, I don't think it's a disadvantage, which basically means it's a disadvantage. I just don't want to tell teams.
Ask Will Golston about that. He says it's always a disadvantage every single snap. And I try really hard to keep my pad level low, but
Golston is bigger and stronger than Logan Hall. So
exactly.
Is he a sub package player? Leal is another one that again, he came in same weight and actually longer arms, even though still not long arms than Logan Hall, which is hilarious because Leal is like, what, 6'3"? Was he 6'3"? And he's like 3.5 inches shorter than Logan Hall.
It's just not a good defensive line class. It really isn't, especially, the edge, but not a defensive tackle.
You don't want to hear this, Scott. You don't want to hear this at all. But Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma, who you and I both, we did do some good things at the Senior Bowl. And he is an explosive straight line player, but he didn't do the agilities of the combine, but he was impressive at the podium. I mean, he was the Bucs type of dude at the podium.
Conference. It's great. So.
He did, I know. And he is a dog on the field. Like, we're not denying his effort level at all on the field. Like, he goes crazy on the field. It's just very chaotic. He cannot bend or change directions at all. Like, he's one of the most linear players I've ever watched.
Right.
And I just have major concerns. If it's later in the draft, maybe. But he didn't do the agilities of the combine, and I was really anxious to see what that 3-cone would look like, because that dude is just completely straight up and down. But they're looking for quickness, Scott, and he is going to be one of the quicker dudes. And there's really not many options after that have actually like pro ready. But he was like, I don't like to play with players who aren't winners.
Go ahead and get another defensive tackle, solve it in free agency. So you don't have to worry about, there's 2 guys we like in the draft. And it's such a crapshoot that even if you like a guy, he may not be there, right? I mean, you can't put all your eggs in that basket and say, we're going to wait until the draft to address a position that is just absolutely weak on quality and quantity, right? It's a fool's game. But you know what's not foolish? Having your money invested with our friends over at Immuni Financial.
At Immuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Immuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
John, we got to get to Colorado, man. Managing your family's wealth means more to Immuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage, and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. Listen, folks, the world is turbulent right now. A lot of things going on in the financial sector. Get the guys with 40 years of experience on your side. Let Immuni Financial help you plan ahead to navigate these turbulent times and to stay ahead. Call Immuni Financial at 1-800-868-6864 or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
Let's get to some of these super chats here, Scott, before we move on. Leo with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Leo. It seems to be a thing that wide receivers are getting franchised. Devontae Adams getting the tag is insulting. Likewise with Godwin and Robinson again. It is a thing. I mean, top wide receivers are going to get the tag. Yeah, top players are going to get the tag. So I don't know if it's wide receiver dependent. And overall, the market for wideouts is down. So if you think you got a guy you really like, you keep him. Leo says, you guys seem confident Godwin is getting signed. Yes, we are confident Godwin is getting signed. I'm not sure. I hope people know that the franchise tag does not mean you can't sign a player long-term. They have until like July 15th, I believe, to sign him long-term. They are going to sign him long-term. It's just frustrating that they have to use the tag to get that done to keep him off the market. So there's no competitive offers when it really just should be done or close to being done, or they should feel confident about it being done regardless is kind of been where Scott and I are coming from. But yes, Godwin's not going anywhere. He is going to be a Buccaneer long term. It just sucks
Right.
that they might have to lose somebody else that's really important in order to make that happen. That's kind of
exactly.
where I think the misunderstanding is happening there.
Yep.
So BJ Hill, you have him going to the Bucs.
Yep.
And I believe that you're right, Scott. It's going to be difficult to find, if they lose some people, to find the type of impact Bruce Arians is talking about with pass rush if they go anywhere other than free agency. Hill even is just, he's a good player for sure.
He's
I don't
good.
know that he's
not a Pro Bowler. Right, exactly. Right. But he's going to command about $8.5 million is about what I projected for him. 3 years, $8.5 million. So I've got BJ Hill, I've got Bradley Bozeman, I've got tight end Mo Alley Cox replacing Rob Gronkowski at $6 million. He's a big guy, 6'5", 267 pounds. And the Colts might want to keep him because Jack Doyle just retired. But
I have no idea what he's going to cost.
Yeah.
You have him at $6 million a year?
Yeah, I get him $6 million.
That's what PF has him at, I think, something like that. But
Correct.
man, he's coming off a bad season. It's not like he's done a ton in his career. It's going to be interesting. He can block, though. He's a huge dude.
Big guy. And
very
and
much
he averaged 13
like
yards.
Fells. He looks like Fells, honestly.
Correct.
He's
13 yards per catch average, 4 touchdowns last year. And then, on the offensive side, a couple of the bigger names, Cordero Patterson, right? I wanted to snag him from Atlanta. I just like what he brings to the table from the ability to be a running back by committee guy. Your lead back is the veteran, but also a guy that if you want to put him out there at wide receiver in the slot, you can just do so many things. He's almost like an older David Johnson for Bruce Arians back when he had him in the Cardinals. And he can also solve the kick return duties. So you're getting this guy for $6 million a year to really kind of play 3 roles. And so I did like that option there. And then a player you and I both like for different reasons, John, Byron Pringle, as a guy to come in to compete for the number 3 position. Now, Byron Pringle is a K-Stater. This team does not have any K-Staters. Gosh darn it, it needs a K-Stater. So Byron Pringle, come back to Tampa. That's right, he's a Tampa native. So that is a legit name to keep an eye on because the Buccaneers might give him a little bit of a raise. I had him at $3 million per year. He made $2 million last year in Kansas City over 2 years. So 2 years, $6 million. Those are the guys that I decided to go out and get. And then quickly looking at some of the draft picks. Again, you can read my battle plan on pewterreport.com. Who's on deck tomorrow, John? Jason?
I believe Josh Q.
Yeah.
is on deck for tomorrow. And Matt is going Wednesday.
Okay.
I don't know when JC's slotting in there. He might be Thursday. He was crying about having to do it. JC's on watching right now, so I'm gonna rip on him. He's crying about having to do it on Tuesday. He said I don't get turn this around in time. So I'm trying to give him. I'm trying to work with the guy, man. But you know what it is with these kids these days. You know, I think he'll go. He and Casey probably might both be Thursday, and then I'm going to Friday. I gave myself tons of time to work on it, just to be selfish. So
yeah. Well, and see, the thing is, I try to keep it as realistic as possible. The great thing is other members of the Pewter Report staff are probably going to be a little more outlandish and out there. Some crazy trades and some real interesting things. So I kind of start off more conservative, and then it gets a little crazier during the week. John, you're batting cleanup, and so it's going to be fun to see how you end this series. But so aside from Byron Pringle competing for that 3rd wide receiver job, I've got this guy right here who really blew up at the combine. The Bucs had an interview with him. I'm talking about Christian Watson from North Dakota State, a player that really kind of blew up at the Senior Bowl, was noticed by Casey Hudson on the first day out there. Wow, all the receivers, this guy is the one who really stands out. And I went back and watched the tape on him, and it's weird because he plays in that North Dakota State offense, which they run the ball so much. They average over 200 yards per game. Watson doesn't even have a 1,000-yard season. Matter of fact, he had an 800-yard season last year, but he also returned kicks for touchdowns. He does a ton of jet sweeps and end arounds as part of that running game. But he averaged 20 yards per catch over his entire career. So he is a big guy at 6'4", 208. Ran a 4.36 at the combine. You see the speed on tape.
Jump 38.5, right? I mean, all around freakish athleticism. He's one of the best athletes at wide receiver, I believe, ever in relative athletic score testing by Kent Lee Platt. It's the Bucs type, right? The character's there. When
Right.
everybody he talks to, he
Blocks.
blocks and plays inside outside, and he's got size, speed, and leaping ability. Those are all three huge physical athletic traits the Bucs look for.
And I tell you what, folks,
they don't care about the small school thing. They don't care about that at all.
No, not at all. He can play. And the thing is, just in case you don't know about NDSU, North Dakota State University is like the Alabama of the FCS.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're the dominant program year in and year out. They win the national titles just about every year. So this is like the Jameson Williams of the FCS level. So I've got him, and don't be surprised if he is a legitimate pick for the Buccaneers, a legitimate option at number 27. I think that his stock is going to get there. I have the Buccaneers trading down out of the first round with Jacksonville to get the first pick in the second round and pick up some more picks because I like those picks. So quickly,
trading down is always a blast. Let me ask you about Tyler Algier. Am I saying his last name right?
Yeah, Algier.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you have them taking Tyler Algier in the second round. I don't mind the Tyler
it's Algier a late second round pick. Yeah.
Right. What made you think that was do you really think he's gonna go that high? Is that kind of where I have not seen him that high. I thought he was gonna be like a late round 3 or early day 3 type of player more.
I kind of would like him there, to be perfectly candid with you, but I just there's some players I liked in the 3rd and 4th round that I'm pretty sure they're going to go there, and we know Jason Light, a la Keyshawn Vaughn, will take a running back ahead of schedule. So I like this guy a lot. I think that he reminds me a lot of Kareem Hunt. He's not a burner, not a blazer, but from a measurable standpoint, he is a tackle breaker. He broke the second most tackles in college football last year, had over 1,200 yards after contact. He is James Conner 2.0. He's just a very physical back, catches the ball well, looks for work.
Like looks exactly like Conner.
Yeah, he really is. If you were to take James Conner, Kareem Hunt, put him in a blender, I think this guy would be a great complement to what you're getting in Cordero Patterson. And then you got Keyshawn Vaughn in the mix as well in the 3rd round. D'Angelo Malone, this is a very athletic pass rusher, undersized, kind of like Cam Gill size. He's up to 243. I'd love to see him at 250. Situational pass rusher that I think that could get in the mix and help the Buccaneers. They go back to North Dakota State for Cordell Volson, who did not test well athletically, but you know what? Neither did Alex Kappa. But this is a player that fits that Jason Light mold. Played right tackle almost exclusively for North Dakota State. They'll move him inside to play guard. So in my situation, I don't have them necessarily getting Zion Johnson around 1. So there is a hole at guard to compete with Aaron Stinney. This is a guy that may be a player that can step in right away and compete, or maybe he takes a year like Kappa did to really develop, and Robert Hainsey. But I like what this guy brings from a nasty run game standpoint.
Yeah. He didn't test a lot, I don't think, at all. He had some struggles there, but overall, I know there's a lot of people who like his mentality for sure. Kind of reminds me of John Runyon from Michigan a few years ago, where I think he was a 7th round pick, and there wasn't really anything crazy about his profile throughout combine, but you put on the tape and he just found ways to win, and that might be what Volson is.
It's interesting because the relative athletic score for him as a tackle is not good, but if you switch it to guard, it's actually pretty acceptable. It's actually kind of on par with Alex Kappa. So that's kind of what my comparison is there. And he's a big guy, 6'6", 319 pounds, nasty. You can see him there, number 67, just face to face, just getting on the second level and moving bodies. And he showed really well at the right guard and left guard positions in the East West Shrine Bowl game. So it's good to kind of get a sneak peek of where that guy's going to play. Almost like what they did with Hainsey last year, seeing him play center in the Senior Bowl, and then drafting him, moving him from right guard to there. This is my sleeper guy right here. I love.
Yeah, I knew he was going to be in there.
Yep. Listen, I'm not sold on Kyle Trask, and just so we're clear, yes, I'm saving the best for last. Yes, I'm going to re-sign Blaine Gabbert. The Blaine train is getting ready to roll. All aboard.
What if Trask beats him out, though, Scott, to start week 1? What if
Kyle Trask beats him out? Is that what you said?
What would you? Yeah. Obviously, it'd be good for the Bucs if that happened. But what would that do to the Blaine trade?
It would derail it for sure. It would,
okay. As long as we're on the same page with that. We can't stand a guy who loses to Kyle Trask in his first real chance to win a job.
Listen, it's either the Blaine train or we're gonna get on the Trask train. So it's one of those two is leaving the station. Okay, So we're doing that. But I'm throwing this guy in the mix. Big guy, 6'6", 6'7", 249 pounds. He played at 260 earlier in his career. He just reminds me of that Bruce Arians pocket passer, strong arm, worked the seam a ton. When Bruce Arians said there's one pocket passer we like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was this guy. I think some people might have been thinking Kenny Pickett.
Oh, here we go.
But I'm just telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if it's this gunslinger here. Threw over 5,000 yards, had the most accurate,
by the way,
completion percentage in the draft.
I talked to him at the combine
was he?
because I knew if you're interested.
Yeah.
What a character.
He's a character, isn't he?
First thing that was said, the guy asked him a question was like, played 265-pound quarterback. He was like doing a bit for the video. He's like, I'm here with Cole Kelly, Southeastern Louisiana quarterback Cole Kelly, 265 pounds. And Kelly was like, 240 pounds, excuse you.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, sorry. And he was like, yeah, you better get that right. And it was like kind of a weird, but it was like an awkward sense of, he's kind of one of those awkward sense of humor guys. And then I got to ask him a bunch of questions, and he's just a funny, he looked like he just rolled out of bed type of dude, but he was sharp. Like, he talked about his mental game and how that's really what teams are most impressed with him by. And he said, though, he was up to, I think what did he say? Was he up to 270 at one point? I think he
269, I think.
He's 269. I think he said something like that. I mean, he was just massive, I guess. And he's trimmed down for the combine and stuff, but man, he's a huge quarterback.
He had 38 rushing touchdowns. He was like a goal line, like bulldozer down there by the goal line. But I really like him. We'll see what happens. To round up the draft again, mostly offensive guys, because we're rebuilding the offense and
I
Max
like
Borgi. I do too. This guy caught 83 passes as a freshman. 83. Okay. And if you look at him, you say he looks like Christian McCaffrey. He kind of does. That's kind of the nickname. He was McCaffrey Jr., McCaffrey 2.0, not quite as dynamic as Christian McCaffrey, but we'll see how he tests. I have him as a 7th round pick, along with Dejon Dixon from Nicholls State as a wide receiver who was a standout at the NFLPA game. So that's how the draft ends for those guys on the offensive side, getting some players that can help out in special teams, obviously. So that's the Bucs battle plan. Let me know what you think about that. And we're gonna have these Bucs battle plans all week long. They're fun to do, and I'm gonna enjoy reading the comments and hearing people rip me for re-signing Blaine Gabbert. But we told you it was coming. So
yeah. I kind of like that draft, honestly. I think it might be a little high for Algier, but I'll tell you what, he's one of the PFF has him as one of the best pass protecting backs in the draft. So he's going to be on the Bucs radar, especially with his size. I absolutely think the fit makes a ton of sense for sure. So it'll be interesting to see this whole class. I mean, it honestly, Scott, it might be perfect. The way that it aligns with the Bucs needs. We'll see how things fall. But like running back and tight end are things they obviously need to rehaul both of those rooms. And it seems like there's a lot of depth. Not a lot of high-end talent, but a lot of depth. So they can replenish with some options that'll keep them afloat at those positions, which are not critical positions. Focus on keeping your stars. Use that first-round pick to add a potential starter at guard or wide out, or hopefully not, but corner if you need one. Defensive tackle if one's available. And then you've got to use the depth of the draft for some other spots. But
no Damian
Richie, we're
Pierce
not going to answer this question right now.
No Damian
because
Pierce.
there are Florida Gator fans in the chat that cannot handle hearing Scott's Damian Pierce hatred. Blind, just hatred for this man, who is one of the most likable players in the draft. If you'd have been at the combine, Scott, it would have been so heartwarming for you to hear this guy talk, and he's just a team player. He's the running back nacho. He really is. So
okay, well that's great, and he can lift weights. That's awesome, but he can't run the rock. Sorry, he's not that good.
Oh, this hater, unbelievable hate. Scott says Charlie says Scott has a good eye for running backs, so he's on board.
I do, but they never pick the guys that I like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Kareem Hunt, Javonte Williams. It's like I'm serving him up, Jason. Draft him. Instead, you get Jeremy McNichols and Charles Sims and Keyshawn Vaughn. Come on. Like, I'm helping you. Help me help you. Help me help
Keyshawn
you.
Vaughn, remember we wanted Antonio Gibson. He was off the board just before the third round.
Gosh.
Crushing.
Yeah. Emily was asking, what's the name of the quarterback?
Cole Kelly.
Yeah. Southeast Louisiana. He started off at Arkansas, transferred. He is a Louisiana kid through and through. Big guy, 6'7", 249, I think. Big guy.
Yeah, I think he was 240 at the combine, so he is cutting. He's trying to cut, but that's still a big dude. And he's always his body type. I'm just guessing. He's probably always gonna. He's not like I carry it well type. He's
like Ben Roethlisberger.
He's a backyard quarterback. Yep, he's
Big Ben. I'm just telling you. Yeah.
Puts the dip in, lets it rip type of quarterback.
That's right.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, listen. When Blaine Gabbert is re-signed by the Buccaneers, I will share with you a great story about Blaine Gabbert dipping.
Okay. All right. I was going to say that might be the only thing Cole Kelly and Blaine Gabbert have in common, because Cole Kelly Blaine Gabbert is a lot better looking than Cole Kelly.
That's a fact. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt.
See what happens. But all right, great show.
You're probably talking about maybe the greatest looking quarterback in
of course,
in not just Tampa, but maybe.
Well,
maybe
let's not go too far. That's good. Let's not go too far.
Yeah.
Cam Newton exists, but all right, this was a great show. Great thoughts about the Bucs offseason, and great look at Scott's offseason Bucs battle plan as well. We'll have these battle plans rolling out all week. Tomorrow we'll be on the show. We'll talk more about this. Josh Q will be coming on, talk about his battle plan, making his Pewter Report podcast debut as well. So make sure you tune in. Yes, for the cap expert, and you can ask him cap related questions too. And we'll talk to Godwin and Davis, and we'll obviously talk about whatever happens with the franchise tag tomorrow, because that deadline is 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going live at 3:30 though tomorrow, 3:30 to 4:30. So when that deadline drops, if the Bucs hadn't made a decision by then, we'll be live on the air to react to whatever happens with the franchise tag and the Bucs tomorrow, because we'll be live at that 4 p.m. Eastern deadline. So 3:30 to 4:30 tomorrow on the pod will be the times. Make sure you tune in and join us for that. And then obviously we'll be back as well. We'll be back on Wednesday, Thursday. We'll keep it rolling all week, talking Bucs battle plans and talking about whatever is going on with the Bucs off season. It's going to be a fun week, and it's going to be a fun week next week as free agency is off and underway. It's going to be great. So everybody, before you jump out, hit like, make sure you like the show, share the link, subscribe to the Pewter Report podcast, and spread the word. Let the friends and family know that this is where it's at. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to another great edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.